on, guys? It is another overcast but nice day, and just making another video here. So in this one I wanted to clarify a few things, especially about the intake. I was looking through the videos last night and I noticed that I kind of skipped over a couple big things, so clarify a few things. And I also want to talk about the future of the car and some of the bigger modifications that I'm thinking about doing, and what your guys' thoughts are. So let's get right into it. So first off, the intake I originally had made because, and when I say the intake, I mean the intake boot. Mine actually hadn't completely cracked, but it was starting to, and I saw people online that had similar ones that I wanted to do, so I just went ahead and bit the bullet. It's actually a piece of I want to say Vibrant, but I don't think it's Vibrant. Vibrant makes the couplers, but it's a intercooler pipe, 45 degree, and I got a local shop to weld this bung on. And originally it was the wrong size bung for the fitting that I wanted, and that led me down this whole rabbit hole of vacuum. And I'm gonna admit it right off the bat, I did not know what I know now. I knew very little. I definitely didn't pay attention in science class. But basically what I was doing wrong was I wasn't getting, so this, just to clarify, this is a VIAS line. This opens up the power valve at a certain RPM, I think it's 5,000, and that opens up valves in the intake so that it changes the runner length, and that's good for top end power, which is not to be confused with the VIAS in the V6, which does the opposite. It closes for the low end to give you torque. So VIS for us is for top end, and without this vacuum line getting vacuum, right, the air is going in, and at a certain velocity, a certain RPM, it's enough air to draw a vacuum, which causes the solenoid to be tripped, and that opens up the power valve, this thing. So if you look in your stock intake boot, where this little line goes in, it actually has a little teardrop shape. I guess I'll cut to it here. I'll go dig out my old intake boot and show it to you. But if you look on the inside, if you're doing this mod, and take a look on your stock intake boot, it has a really nice, well-designed flow. So it's basically assisting this to get vacuum. So obviously I wasn't going to make that. So what I had to do was I cut the actual plug at a 45 degree and shaved it down so that on the inside it's barely sticking in, and it's just got a little bit of a angle to it. So I have tested it. It does open VIS now. So that works. So you have to make sure that this is going to draw enough vacuum to open that up, or else your car will not run right. So if you have a custom intake, make sure your VIS line runs well. As you can tell on mine, I've got mine siliconed up, so that's not going anywhere. All right, a little, I'm not gonna pull too hard, but anyways, in the stock location, this feeds air under regular vacuum from the manifold, and then when the vacuum from the manifold lessens as you start to accelerate, as the throttle body opens up, that pressurizes, and the vacuum the Venturi vacuum will reverse the airflow, and this stops acting as a breather and acts as a crankcase evacuation. So it does both, and I didn't realize that when I made this bung, and that is what led me down the rabbit hole of adding a second source of vacuum, because it was either basically pay all this money and get this done and then not use it and have to go back to and find a stock intake boot, which was unacceptable, or I figured out the vacuum. So I just want to clarify. I want to be transparent. You know, I'm not just coming up with this stuff on my own, right? I make a lot of mistakes, so live through me. Don't make these mistakes. And vacuum is important for this engine. So if you are going to do a secondary vacuum pump, whether it's mechanical or an electric pump, make sure that it has a source of air to breathe from, and that you can regulate it, which is exactly what this is. I showed it in the last video, right? All the way open, maximum airflow. You're getting, as much air as it can feed. All the way down, you're not getting any airflow from here, and it's just pulling a vacuum on the engine. And I did drive it around like that, and it didn't really seem to like it. It seemed like it was like laggy. So I'm giving it kind of in between, just giving it a little bit of airflow, and it seems to really like that. The wind is picking up a little bit, so sorry if it's hard to hear me, but I just wanted to kind of show the layout of what the next topic is going to be, which is the future plans for the car. So as you can see, there is not much room here for turbos, and that led me down the path of supercharging this car. So I'm going to go back in the car just because it's kind of hard to hear, but basically I have two options, and I have done the research for both of these. So first option is a supercharger kit from South Africa. I reached out to this guy on Facebook, and he responded, and he's got a bunch of these things. He's got full crate engines. I guess what they use them for down there is cigarette boats, like jet boats. So first of all, the numbers are really promising, right? So what he's telling me is that the VK45 on stock internals, unopened, not even filing the rings, can take around 8 or 9 pounds of boost. On 8 or 9 pounds of boost, he was saying it would made about 700 horsepower crank. I find that a little hard to believe. It could be. The rule of thumb that I was always taught was basically you double the horsepower at 14.7 pounds of boost, and then anything less than that, you just kind of work its percentages out from there. So for us, at 14.7 pounds of boost, we'd be making 680, right? So advertised 340 crank, double the power, 680, right? So regardless, that's crazy amounts of power. That's more than I would ever need. But basically, the financials of it are a little steep. So he was saying for a brand new kit, it would be around $8,000 US. Now, that's not too bad in the world of forced induction, but the secondary option is what made me kind of hesitant, because centrifugal superchargers, right, ProCharger style, are much cheaper. So a Vortec V3 brand new is $2,300 US. And looking around, I would still need a mounting bracket. So let's say $1,500, $2,000 for a custom one-off billet aluminum mounting bracket. And then let's say another $500-600 in pulleys and bits and pieces and room for error. So we're still looking at like $4,000 or $5,000, right? $8,000 US is like $10,000 Canadian, and then shipping from South Africa cannot be cheap. So, and here's the other thing about the centrifugal: it's better for my application. It's more streetable. It's less power down low, right? So we're less hard on parts. Makes more power up top. There's a ton of reasons, and also for packaging. That's why I was under the engine. If you look at basically where most cars mount their centrifugal superchargers, I'm thinking of just kind of replacing the entire intake track, right? So all of this, we just get rid of all this. Spacer sits off of maybe right about here. So the actual compressor sits on this side. Make some sort of short ram, maybe even have it come up through the bumper support. I was looking at similar engines, so like 4.6 Fords and stuff like that, and they kind of mount them, compressor in here, and then the pod filter facing backwards, right? So if you're facing packaging issues, the ProCharger is kind of appealing. So I just kind of wanted to see what you guys thought. There is another mod that is doable, which is a manual transmission swap. So Collins, sorry about the wind, Collins makes an adapter. It's $750, and it lets you mount up a CD09 manual transmission. Now, I saw a guy on Instagram do this with his girlfriend's car on a Y34 M45, and all he did was took all the solenoids and all the bits and pieces that talk to the rest of their car, and he just put them into a small box and stuffed them up in the car somewhere. Then, a custom sleeve and just a little bit of fab work for a clutch pedal, and you're off to the races, man. And a CD09 is a really good manual transmission. So I do love autos. I never really thought of doing a manual swap. If anything, I would kind of want to go to something almost like a sequential. I mean, if you're going to pay the money, go for what you want, right? This isn't a time to be learning how to drive manual in a 600 horsepower supercharged luxury sedan. So again, what are your thoughts? It would definitely free up some horsepower. I know people say autos win races, but realistically, an RE05 is losing probably 15 or 20% of your power. So it might be faster in an auto, but it's going to be more fun in a manual. What are you guys' thoughts? Should I supercharge it with a traditional twin screw supercharger? Or not twin screw. Actually, sorry, it's not a twin screw. It's a Roots. A little bit of a difference. I'm bored. I hate the quarantine, and I want to make some more power. So what are you guys' thoughts? I'm going to sign this off now. I know these videos haven't been that good. I'm kind of waiting for the track to open up. There is private rentals. Maybe I'll just go to Mexico and film some stuff. But for now, this is it. So let me know what you guys think. Centrifugal versus Roots. Manual versus auto. One other thing I wanted to mention was the headers. So I have a pretty nasty header leak. Apparently it's a common issue on these engines, and from what I've researched, there's no headers for a 45. However, JBA shorties for a 2015 Nissan Titan and up will work. So they have round ports. They do not have oval ports as the older VK56 does. So we're going to be investigating that. JBA shorties are super short, or super cheap. They're super short too, but more importantly, they're super cheap. And I think with a little bit of massaging, I could get them past the driver's side, not wheel well, but it's basically where the AC lines run. And from what I've read, they do rub a bit. So that's enough for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.